So web3 communities. We've all been in previous ventures, right? Building communities. What is something that's different from when you first, were doing it, and whether it's Web2, real IRL life, and now what's something that's different about building that community? I want this to be just open discussion, just however you jump in, please.
Hello. So I'd say there's a pretty strong standard of transparency in Web3 compared to Web2. Web2 community building, from my e-commerce background, was very like one centralized body facing an image towards an audience. But in Web3, it's almost a staple, like a must-have, to have a place for the community to actually gather and communicate and share thoughts about what the project is. So it kind of it makes it harder for projects to get away with doing things that aren't in the best favor of the community. And even though there are projects that are doing that, they're getting called out way faster and getting exposed faster because of this whole community thing. In Web2, there's still stuff that hasn't been exposed that's been going on for years because nobody really knows where to, like, the curtain behind which you should be looking.
I'm going to slightly disagree, but I agree, but I'm going to slightly disagree only because I believe there's a pre-pandemic and a post-pandemic world in Web 2 and in Web 3. And so as a small business owner in Web 2 world, community was huge, and in my industry and in my community, and having in real life experiences, whether it was with a Chamber of Commerce or BNI, so depending on the industry maybe that you're in, sort of affects the community aspect. And so for myself, my industry is very global, and we have events like this, and so the community aspect in a Web 2 world was very much. So I'm going to almost talk that way in a Web 2. But then as we went into a pandemic world, we started seeing less communities in real life, obviously, because the Web3 is more of a technological, I guess, experience. But with Web3, what I'm finding is we had this season of not having connection. And then now, I would say in the last 6 months to a year, community has been vital, because people have missed that interaction and the interest, the commonality, right? And so we've needed to create more communities, Twitter Spaces, and have things that really we can all collaborate on and really connect with. And so it's interesting because you could almost say, like I said, there's a Web 2 pre-pandemic, a Web 2 post-pandemic, a Web 3 pre-pandemic, and a Web 3 post-pandemic. But at the end of it all, its community is, the forefront. It's just a matter of which industry maybe you were part of.
I'm getting used to the mic too. Go ahead, George. Yeah.
Hello? There we go. Yeah. So even within Web3, it's changed a lot in the last year. I mean, it's really dynamic in what's happened. That a year ago, everyone's behind their profiles, and all the clubs that I was involved in and all the communities I was involved in was mostly either metaverse or gaming, or somebody you're in chats and so on and so forth. But in the last year, with all these in real life events such as this one, as well as Club FOMO having in real life events, I'm meeting all these people that I've been talking to for months in Phoenix, and now I actually see who they are, and I'm like, oh wow, I had no idea. You have no clue to who really anyone is until you meet them, as far as how they look. And then what happens is you already kind of know who they are from all the social interactions. It's so dynamic. And then you're like,
is it your Twitter name, your Discord name, or your real name that I know you by?
Right. It's so dynamic. It's so interesting.
Well, the irony is I didn't know you by your face, and we definitely met in Arizona. But as soon as you said Club FOMO, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that project, together. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it.
That is wild how it works, right? But you guys brought it up. The value of community has kind of really been brought back by Web3, right? And the coolest thing about being a part of a community, you start seeing that there are, those brand ambassadors, those people who kind of rise up in the community itself, and now they're, have the torch and the mantle. What do you see with that, Dusty? It's kind of wild how it works. It's just organic. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have had many discussions about this stuff, and we have a lot of the same thought process. Is I think there's a transformation, and this is my thought process of it, from Web 2 to Web 3. Is it's not so much about community as it is individualism. So let's take Facebook for instance. They've never cared about community. They are a mega organization, so they've never cared to cater to you. I mean, you've had these discussions about this. Well, Web 3, you're going to have value. You're going to start building value in your individualism. What you look up online, that's going to have value, So I see it more catering to an individual. So me as a community manager, I try to focus on a person's individualism. We was talking to another project yesterday, and a lot of us people that are in DeFi are scared of the term KYC. It's like, we don't want to be a part of KYC. Well, I like to recoin that and use it to know your community, because in a project, I think it's very important to know the demographic of your community, because if I'm managing a project whose community is primarily in Africa, their mindset is going to be different than a project of people here in the United States. I have to understand that as a Web3 community manager, because in a project here in the States, I may not tolerate something that I do need to tolerate there, So we have to be careful and know that individualism versus the word community to me.
You're almost talking about the culturalism, right? And then because I'm a people person and all about personalities and identifying and knowing your love languages, I could say the exact same thing, even in our culture and in our community, knowing who I'm speaking to and addressing them in a manner that they're going to receive the message. So I could be saying the exact same thing, but I have to deliver that message completely differently depending on who I'm engaging with, because some people maybe are visual learners. I was talking about that earlier. Some people are analytical learners, and receive things differently. And some want, the vision and, the joy and all the fun stuff. And others are like, just give me the details. And so it's so fascinating. You really have to know people, but you have to also start with knowing yourself. How do you best communicate? And can you relay that to your community so that it's all connecting and purposeful?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I'll go back to what Alex had said at the beginning. We know the differences between Web 2 and Web 3. I think a lot of Web 2 is disguising itself as Web 3. I think that there's a lot of bigger names, influences in the space that want to give you the impression that they are using Web 3 technology, and therefore they are Web 3, because they're using the blockchain. Personally, I don't think just because you're using the blockchain, it makes you a Web3 community. I believe that Web3 community should be collaborative. It should be something where it's a very community-driven approach of how things are identified, of what, the problems are and what the solutions are going to be. Whereas with a Web 2 community, similar to what Alex had said, it kind of has a beacon, right? It starts with one person or one entity. I see a lot of that in Web 3, and I disagree with it because I don't think that it is necessarily genuine or authentic. I think that it's people that are grifting off, the current meta, the themes, the paradigm shift that we're going through. But it bothers me that there's not more actual Web3 community building happening in some of these more prominent places.
So what would you say is like some good ways to define Web3 community building?
Well, I mean, it's just that, right? Like, to start, it shouldn't be one person's or one group's curriculum. It shouldn't be one group or one person's ideals or values or anything. Like, if you're really going to be Web3, everyone in your community should have a voice.
And it goes right along because it's awesome. Austin came up with the thing that we use in our community. It's not ego, it's we go. Right? It's so important to just calm down, as FOMO would say. Just
calm down.
Really don't think you're don't think too highly of yourself, right? And that's not to kind of push it, but just don't.
Well, it's a we, not a me.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, so in quantum society, how do you engage with how do you get your community engaged and getting them kind of just more involved? Maybe some just to kind of maybe spur it on, right?
We have people share. So we're all about mindset and utilizing proper mindset for achieving goals. So we have people send their goals in, holding each other accountable, kind of giving. We do mindset trainings, and afterward the community talks. People help each other through mental battles they're going through. We share earning opportunities. Sometimes, like when there's some money move to make, we share it. That definitely drives a lot of engagement and just like communication and value.
What about the FOMO Club?
Here we go, right? Building the community in real life events is just, it's so much fun. And putting the word out to all these new members in the Phoenix metro area and also the world, quite frankly, being part of our community is super important. But what I've really learned is, because I'm in about 20 different communities, I've got NFTs for days, right? And I hop into a lot of Discords. I'm all over the place. And what I've learned is that the social bees, quite frankly, is the strongest, best community out there. I love the bees, and it's the truth, because it's like real world, real grit, hardworking, fun people that I've met, and in a lot of other Discords, I've met wonderful people, and maybe more on the art side or on the alpha, trading crypto side. But as far as like real world, hardworking, good like community, especially in the IRL situations that I've been in, the bees are amazing. So if you're not part of that community, I really strongly suggest it.
Do you find that you mentioned being involved in maybe 20 communities, that really stretching your bandwidth, to be able to really create connection? I started realizing very soon on, this was my tribe, and I'm like, why invest my energy and efforts elsewhere? I'm all in here, because to me, the diversification that we have was really important. And when I mean diversification, it's in all aspects. No matter, your background and where you come from and who you are and what size you are. I talked to Color Me Crypto, and I referenced something that she had said at our last convention, and it's just so important. And it's also about your skill set. Like, we have such a vast variety, and we're global. And so for me, I get being very ADD, very, very much needing to be, kind of have a lot of touch points, and it suits my personality. And I think when you find that tribe, so I'm curious to know, like, I don't have time for anybody else.
No,
like
it's
that
true.
other.
Well, I make time for certain communities, but I've been with the bee community for since February. And before that, and even now, I try to spend some time, but now less and less in other Discords and less elsewhere, where I spend more and more time with the bees, and I'm looking into the goats and the lions too, because that's my next move.
Well, I kind of consider the goats as part of our family. So when I say
Right.
the bees, like, I totally always mean.
I don't have
the
a
goats
goat
too.
and I don't have a
Yeah.
lion, but I've been looking into the lion
Yeah.
for a while.
But I will tell you, I will totally be all over in yours. And I had forgotten that was where you were with until this week. I was like, oh, I remember him from our last convention, because it's it's very much spiritual. It's energy. I talk a lot about energy. So for me, I would absolutely, invest time there. But I also will be bringing all of that energy into our group. And so I could see where there'd be a reason in photography also being an industry of mine, it's where there is those individual.
I have a lot of passions as
Yeah,
well. So like my
right.
on-chain monkey, I love it. I'm there. I'm all about the on-chain monkey as well. That's right. Exactly right. Exactly. That's community right there. That's true, real community.
Definitely. One thing that I wanted to add, going back to what Melanie had said, was in regards to spirituality. That's a big buzzword in Web3. I've noticed. It's something that I wasn't too familiar with. I've never really been religious, and then just in the past couple years, especially as you said before, with the pandemic and everything, it really changed our outlook on life. Hopefully, it did, right? And our train of consciousness. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of energy vampires in Web3. And it's something that I think we all need to be cognizant of, is that just because someone's preaching spirituality and wellness and mindfulness and whatever else does not mean they're necessarily looking out for your best interest. I would say when it comes to Web3, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to just utilize it more efficiently. And it's really about finding like what you identify with, what values you want to promote, and finding those like-minded people and becoming a community, becoming a tribe of sorts. And quite frankly, I don't even think that it needs to revolve around some sort of like paid NFT opportunity. I think that is, of course, one direction you can go in, one approach. But I think that as Web3 continues to scale, as more people are experiencing this kind of shift in consciousness and opening up their eyes to the world around them, and the inequalities, the inconsistencies, etc., there are going to be natural herds of people that emerge from that, that are really supportive of one another and that can accomplish amazing things regardless if there's an NFT.
And it gives us, Web3 gives us the access globally, so that our tribe could also be parts of other countries that we would have never had access to. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah, if you take the NFT and the coin out or just dump them to zero and the project doesn't stand without them, then personally I think the community is not valuable enough, and there's not enough of the actual core community there to hold the project together, because the project is not the NFT or the coin or the tokenomics, it's the community behind that, and those are just Web3 enabled systems that allow the community to do what it does even better.
People are the assets. Yeah.
Human capital, baby.
So I would like to circle back to what Alex began with, because it is about mindset. It is, and that's something that makes the Bees Discord so great, is that we spent so much time in other Discords and still do, because we want to study communities. We want to study other projects, to learn how to set that tone. That's what you do as a community manager, is you set the tone for the conversations that go on in that Discord. So if you set the correct mindset, your community will follow that. So if I'm in another project and I see to the moon, I am out. I'm deleting that community, because I look at it like this. And I know it's a figure of speech, but if we all got on a rocket ship, went to the moon, we have separated ourselves from civilization. We have no outreach on community anymore. And that is the Bee's focus. That is our mindset. And we will continue to preach that until the end of our time, is that we will continue to build community. It doesn't matter what the value of our NFT is. It doesn't matter what our floor is. We don't discuss it, because even if we're a 50th project, we're going to continue to build the community, because there's always going to be new people coming in time after time after time.
And even we evolve time after time after time after time.
Oh, absolutely. I liked what Tyler was talking about with the energy vampires. That's true. But there's that happy medium of conflict resolution. There's going to happen in your community. You're dealing with all kinds of people and their character, and just in general, you know what I'm talking about. And you have to be able to be alert and know that. And people that see a text or something and there's no tone in there. So there are also people in your community that have to be aware of that and be able to be that peacemaker, right? You guys have, this in your...
I'm a big believer in conflict provides opportunity for conversation and better understanding. So I'm not afraid of conflict. I've had conflict even in our community. I'm okay with that, because enlighten me. enlighten me. Where's the challenge? What is it that we're disagreeing on? Because at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is the same. So we can still, continue on with kindness and generosity and being a good human being and still have conflict, but it doesn't mean that, it has to be a bad thing. And I think, I love what Austin was saying earlier, and we've talked about this. It's not that he likes the word moderator, he likes engagers. I could also say mediators.
Yeah. So one thing that we had talked about yesterday was that Web3 is not defined by Twitter. However, with that said, Twitter Spaces has been a great outlet for, if it's actually moderated well, you can have real civil discourse and open forums where people can share their ideas, their experiences, their challenges, their struggles, all of the above. And I think that's so valuable for all of us to just be able to hear all of those different perspectives. And if, like I said, as long as it is, going in a positive direction and that we're approaching it with love, I believe that it's okay to disagree. Like, we shouldn't all be going in exactly the same direction. My favorite novel when I was growing up was 1984. Like, I do not want groupthink. I do not want thought police. I'm a free thinker. I always will be. Like, it's at my core. And so it's very important to me to be able to demonstrate and be able to, I guess you could say, kind of like provoke these types of conversations where people are going to disagree. And I want them to find that common ground. I want them to be able to still show like some sort of mutual respect and civility towards one another, even if they may not have the same, opinions or values or ideals. One other thing I'll mention is that, kind of playing counter, like devil's advocate to that in a sense, one of the Soul Rich programs that Lauren and I are going to be hosting is Triggered. Triggered is going to be all about clickbait topics as far as the title of the space, things that are going to draw a lot of controversy, draw a lot of different opinions, and we want to embrace that with the community. I think it's important, and I think that the mainstream media, a lot of the algorithms of Web 2 have encouraged us into echo chambers. It has put us around, all the same people that we identify with, but that's not necessarily healthy. Like, it's good to have people that are going to challenge you and that are going to, have, differing views. And so with Triggered, we really want to promote those types of opportunities and experiences with a large community of people, all from different areas of Web3, that it's not just going to be Web3 topics. One of the topics could be like Elon Musk says he's going to vote Republican and then consequently gets accused of sexual assault or misconduct, days later. Like, these are things that are happening in the real world that I think are important to talk about and for us to really take something away from of value and to be able to share that with one another.
I love that you're doing that. I think that is huge because I think a lot of people are triggered, and it has nothing to do with the other person necessarily. It's just something that, because of their past, something that they went through is why they're reacting and interacting in that way in that moment. And that takes me back to just self-awareness and how much you have to be able to know yourself in effort to be able to communicate with everybody else regardless. And so self-awareness, learn, constantly be an ever seeker of knowledge of yourself, and why is it that you are triggered by certain behaviors, certain people, certain mindsets.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, just being able to acknowledge your own insecurities, your own areas of opportunity through some sort of experience, maybe even a type of conflict. But as long as there is that conflict resolution that's present, that is, the main focus of the conversation, I think there is a lot of value there.
And don't be afraid to voice that was a trigger in the moment, because then that's an educational opportunity for somebody else.
1000%.
I love that. I love that. And most of the time, those triggers, whatever your assumptions are, little tip, most of the time, those are just reflections of your own insecurities about yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. We're fixing things right here. That's what I'm talking about. Because that's literally like the question that I had here. What's broken, right? What's broken with the system that we're coming from, and how do we fix it? That's exactly what you're talking about, is let's open up and let's have dialogue, and you have to be able to communicate with each other. It's huge.
I'll tell you what's broken. It seems like Twitter might be broken.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
too much
this is a tough
sometimes.
conversation to have because we don't have like actual proof. Like I don't have the ability to collect all these, data and statistics by myself. But I can say that as someone who uses Twitter every day for hours on end, and yes, I'm trying to build platform and following and whatever else, but trying to do so in an ethical and a transparent fashion. There are practices that I'm not going to support, whether it be botting your followers or hosting a shill space that you're being endorsed, or you're being paid to promote a certain project or anything like that. So when it comes to what you're saying about is Twitter broken, I believe there's a possibility that Twitter themselves have something to gain from promoting certain accounts, certain projects. Like it seems too coordinated. It seems like the algorithms are too sophisticated for there not to be an angle there.
But besides that, it feels toxic sometimes.
1,000%. Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
And you can just walk away.
Well,
That's the
wait,
degen
leave it
culture, right? That's
right.
that's the degen culture that Lauren was talking about yesterday. That's being encouraged. Like people are actually kind of
Right.
reveling in that, right? Where it's misery loves company.
Correct. So how do we fix that?
Well, a couple things, and it's interesting because these conversations, I feel like a broken record today, only because I've had several conversations so similar today, and with people in the audience. So it's mind blowing because it's so relevant and purposeful. But what's broken? I think the whole point of Web3 is to fix what's broken in Web2 and to make it better. And I'm a voice for women. I'm a voice for diversification, and many people that are here right now have heard me talk about this several times. How many women are on the panels? How many women are, Cynthia is like one of my heroes, Brooke, right? How many times I applaud Vince for making sure that we had women representation as a moderator even. And, people in this room have heard me say that. That can get me in trouble sometimes because that I'm looked upon maybe as, well, that's annoying, or walk away. You don't need to be part of this conversation. It's like, but do you even know the value you're missing out on by not having diversification and how important that is in the conversation for not having everybody like-minded? And it's just so important. And to me, that's why we created the Honey Radio Show, because we wanted 2 hours every week. And I'm actually sad that it's only 2 hours for women, about women, by women. And I say, we love our men because they have women in their lives, but women say over and over again, they will not come up on the Twitter spaces because they don't feel safe. And so we constantly provide every week 2 hours that they have a safe space to talk about Web3, to talk about whatever it may be. I really try to target it around things that we can, not the problems, what are the solutions and what can we address? And then creating that conversation. We're not going to fix all the problems. We just need to have the conversation.
So I'll just add to that. My impression coming into the space a year and a half ago, as like I said yesterday, not a crypto native, but learning about the crypto community, is that it's the good old white boys club for the past 10 years. And there are many people in the space that are completely okay with that. I wouldn't say they necessarily go out of their way to encourage it, but they're complacent. They are accepting of the limited environment that they have been presented with, and they're embracing that everyone around them looks the same. That doesn't feel Web3 to me.
There is a comfort to that. So it's like there's like the two sides. Well, that's comfortable to them for people that don't want to get uncomfortable. My son's quote is Conor McGregor's quote, and it's get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the whole point of growth, but not everybody wants that. And then we too need to accept them for who they are, meet them where they're at, and then go, okay, that's not where I want to be.
Do we though? I feel like that's where the education comes in.
I agree, but yet we change the world one person at a time and one conversation at a time. And they were brought up. We're here to enlighten, yet I'm also not here to create. We talk about energy, and maybe I don't want to be part of that. I want to be part of the solution, but I also am aware that it's the conversation that needs to happen, but Do I want to invest the energy in somebody that is not willing to listen?
So ironically,
Tyler,
we don't get
no,
to the...
it is my turn to jump in. It is my turn to jump
Well,
in.
I already knew,
I
like, we're very synergy.
I want to speak on the women thing, and I think it will. Women won't will only be correctly represented as soon as us men start acknowledging that. And the women only spaces are important, but it's also just as important to have spaces where there's men and women both confident in themselves and creating a secure space. And
That's a true community. Diverse.
And we have a great. That's
right.
why I love
That's a true
here,
community.
because we do have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just my thoughts
Please,
when it came.
let's go. I love this.
Yeah, my thoughts is that we can't have one without the other. Like, I consider myself a bit of a provocateur. I'm going to be the one that goes in those uncomfortable places, throws myself in the fire, and is willing to talk about those taboo topics. Then we have people like you who are going to be more focused on the education, the solutions, and being able to like actually
And as a
inspire
white male, is that easier for you to be able to put yourself in those situations and to be provocative? And
oh, that's my white privilege, 100%. And white male
exactly.
privilege, 100. Yeah,
Right,
I agree with
right.
you. Yes.
I do it too, and I don't have any privilege, so I'm just I'm just saying. Seriously, I've always been like that my whole life, right? That's why I would get in trouble in the army, whatever. But I get it, and that's what I love. We are talking about.
And I
stuff
would
right
also
now.
say something I mentioned earlier. It's not just men; it's the women too. Women can actually be a little negative on other women, and that's a conversation that we need to have. That like, let's cheer each other on. It's not about. I talk a lot about the difference between jealousy and envious. You know, envy is you have something I want. I'm so happy for you. I love that you have that. Jealousy is very negative. You have something I want. Why do you have it? And why don't I have it? And being aware again, like, well, where's that energy? Why am I feeling this way toward another woman? And being careful in how I, make sure that I'm a cheerleader for her.
Right. And just also not to categorize people, right? I mean, everybody doesn't. This monolithic thing is not always the case. Just saying, for example, I grew up and I was homeless for a bit. So I mean, people live life in rough ways, right? So I mean, you just don't know. It doesn't matter about somebody's whatever race, color, creed, whatever. So there's people that live all kinds of different ways.
I really appreciate you saying that. Like, it's the irony, right, of being a white male is that I don't identify with the majority of my peers in the, the degen communities. A lot of that, quite honestly, stems from, 10 plus years of PTSD and, traumatizing experiences in my adolescence where I am very self-aware. It's something that I'm very proud of with myself. And I try to reflect that, through my actions and the ways I approach community and, just trying to promote certain types of values with people.
I was today years old when I learned the
Yes.
real definition of the word envious. I've been misunderstanding envy my whole life.
There you go. We kind of went off, right? That's good. But FUD, it happens, right? What do you do when it starts rearing its ugly head in your community, right, Dusty? You gotta. It's not like it's not going to happen. FUD happens. So what do you look to do? How do you deal with it?
I'll start this one off because as FOMO like to title the moderators in our group, they call us the FUD Busters. They even wrote a song about us that had the music of the Ghostbusters to it. But I laugh about it because a lot of projects you go in is zero tolerance. You FUD, you're out. You FUD, you're out. You FUD, you're out. You're out. And you cannot be that way because you never know the next person that comes into your community can be the biggest addition to that project. They're scared. They've been hurt. They've been robbed. They've been violated. Melanie, it's violation. You've experienced this. So you have to be willing to tolerate them, help see their pain, help relate to them, and help them through that. Now, yes, there are trolls, and you learn to identify that right off the bat, and they're gone, they're out. The WhatsApp people, make $5,000 this week. Just call my WhatsApp. They're out. We don't even tolerate that. But a lot of these people, they just come in and they're terrified. They're scared, because they've been hurt by other projects, it's worth the time just to spend a little bit of time with them, just to get them on board, to get them on board with the project. So that's how a lot of the time we deal with the FUD.
Can you imagine if you guys didn't take the time with me? Can you guys imagine a bees
Was that
community?
you? Wow.
Can you imagine? You guys are all like, "Oh man, it was so much easier back then."
Yeah, give love to people. Approach people with love, because if that, it's very likely that fudder gets less love in their life than the average person, and like that's probably the reason why they're.
This is interesting because I
So
think of
if
FUD as the
you-
intention. And, so I wouldn't have identified, that it was definitely the violation and how the community reacted. But that's interesting as you're talking. I'm going, oh, did you guys think I was a fudder?
And you give them that love, and then like that's a seal deal. That's a loyal person who understands the core values and the moral compass of your community, and not only knows it consciously but has felt it subconsciously and feels that connection to the community.
So let me help real quick, Melanie. We did not identify you with FUD because
Because I was crying so much.
I know. If we would have ignored you, said, you know what, you made a mistake, you're on your own. The next project you go into, you have fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's what FUD
1000%.
stands for. It's not just negative or you're crying or your feelings are hurt. That's what FUD is you have a fear, you're scared, you're terrified to invest in the next thing.
Thank you for clarifying. I was today years old.
I want to take a little bit different of an approach and actually ask a question. What's the difference between FUD and critical thinking? Because I think a lot of these Web3 communities do not encourage critical thinking. They just want you to drink the Kool-Aid and trust that the founders or the man behind the curtain or the woman behind the curtain is in charge and they know what they're doing and that they have the best interests of the community in mind. I don't think that's something that we should always be taking at face value. And I think that critical thinking and asking questions should be encouraged.
Absolutely. And you can treat that, how we treat our community and how we deal with FUD is we're like M&Ms. Not normal M&Ms, but the M&Ms with the peanut on the inside. So we're soft and sweet on the outside, but we're hard in the middle. So we're soft on the people, hard on our rules, and hard in our community and in the way our core principles are. And we can apply that. You can apply M&M management to really anything, especially FUD.
How do you structure your community team at the Bees? Structure your community team.
I would say it's always a work in progress.
It is, really.
We're always continually, because as we start to know each other even better,
Right.
we learn to communicate even better. And that's why these in real life events are vital, because people will do for people, not always for maybe the project, but they will sacrifice for other people when they have a connection. They will give up their time and their resources because we want to be servant leaders. But if I don't know you, I don't necessarily have that connection, I might choose another way, as far as how I invest my time.
I think we've had the summer of DeFi. Last year we had the summer of NFTs. I think there's 3 letters. We think this is the year of the DAO. And I think those 3 letters are going to replace the FUD letters, because a DAO is, and this is going to, prelude the next stage that's coming up. But a DAO allows everybody that is a holder of that token to have a voice, and if that DAO is built correctly, the whole community is able to vote on what one person is proposing or one organization is proposing. So it should take the hierarchy out of it that the FUDers like to try to contact to voice their opinion, and it's going to be more of a community-driven project at that point. So,
and yet you still need leadership within that community-driven project, because otherwise you're all like running in circles.
And to your point, I mean, it's also the doers, right? That's how everybody kind of
the shower uppers is
right,
what I like to call them,
right? Yeah. So and then it kind of just starts filtering out. It really is a natural, organic thing. it's pretty amazing, and that's why I think it's this is and it's kind of goes into again and I don't know if it's a question, but I always look at us as storytellers, right? That is what we do, okay? Because there is nothing to Google about what we're building, right? I know people say this stuff, but there isn't. You can't Google whatever, like the bees, quantum society, what we're doing. You can't do that. So just to give you an example of something that I like to do, and then I would like to hear if you have any other analogies, is, this is truth to people. This is why people feel when they start going down the rabbit hole, that's why it's it. And then they're done. They are in it, right? And it's because this is at our core. This is what we are. Blockchain, decentralization. It's how our bodies work, everybody. DNA is code, right? And when that key connects to that DNA, right, it starts creating this organic engine, right? And that organic first engine, it's your heart. And not only is code that it's just creating this organic engine, it's creating that thing, telling that heart its purpose. It's telling it how many beats per second. It's going to pump blood through your body, delivering white blood cells and oxygen all throughout your body. And then this other key is going to connect to your DNA, right? And then it's going to create this liver that's going to do the nutrition and separate that kind of stuff. And when you can kind of tell people what that is, it's exactly what's going on, what we're doing here. It really, it's kind of the foundation of what we're doing. That's why people are drawn to this.
And I think that's the key when we can tell people, and it's communication. People are fine coming along, and participating in things. It's when we have a lack of communication within a community is when the challenges arise. And that was, for me personally, the need that I saw. And like you said, it's very organic. People just, if you happen to be an entrepreneur type mindset, you always are looking for those. There's a need. Oh, I have a solution, whether it's me or somebody else. It's just, that's part of who we are. And so you just step in and you just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But that's kind of awkward in this environment because it's not like there's a resume you submit. It has everything to do with, can you communicate? Can you connect? Are you a good, decent human being? And let's figure it out together. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Do we want any questions out there? Yes, sir. Got 3 minutes, Dr. T.
Do you think in the future we're getting closer that we're going to have NFT encoded into our DNA so we can have pretty much a biological NFT in the future?
No, I'm not Skynet. I'm not. There, like I said, I always talk about you're going to have two decisions, right? There's this centralized way, and there's this decentralized way. One is going to win. I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about, earlier. You're talking about communities, and some of these that are toxic and all this. There's going to be ones that are free thinkers. It's going to win out. One's going to win, and that's how this works. So,
well, I think what'll win, it depends on your objective and your goal. And that's one of the things I always say is it's okay if you're here for just the utility, meaning on the financial aspect, not the people aspect. That's okay. It's okay for people to want to be part of a community just because it's going to create an income for them, a residual income. That's totally fine. I love knowing if that's who you are. Again, I guess it goes back to the people. Then I can relate and adapt and accept you for that's why you're in this community. If you're here for the people or you're here for the education, you're always going to be able to connect with people on a different level. There was something that we were talking about when we go into this community within a community and the challenges it faces. What I love is that we are really in uncharted territory. And like you said, I mean, we're going to be the authors of what's happening here with DAOs and and TCR and how we're working and navigating through that and pivoting and, redefining what that means. And that takes a lot of patience with people. And that's when you really need to know that you can lean in and trust your community that they've got your back, or that the people within, that you can, like you were saying, it was about, it's okay to have conflict, speak up, ask the questions, it's okay. Don't let that be a trigger for, if you're asking a question and they're immediately on a defense, that's their trigger. That's not yours.
So the parallel that I'll paint with the question that was asked is U.S. politics. And I think that maybe we're still a little premature, but I think that the last election showed us that the system needs to change. You know, I personally am pretty independent. Maybe, you know, you could say I lean like libertarian, but I would say that those that were really upset, you know, mainly conservatives, they have reason to be, and that there was a lot of evidence to support that there was inconsistencies, that there was manipulation, etc. Well, blockchain technology could counter that and could ultimately make that an entirely transparent process.
Absolutely. Kaylu? Oh,
These mics. Okay. I'm gonna make it quick because I know y'all out of time. I know how serious it's about time. I just want to say, y'all cool. This is cool. I'm grateful that I was invited to this. I see the benefit that this can bring to my community. Being from Louisville, Kentucky, and now living in Denver, Colorado, I want to share with y'all that yesterday when I got up and speak with Miss Cynthia's panel, that was the first time in my life that I actually experienced white people listening to me and actually paying attention to me and actually embracing what I was saying. And I just want to know if I'm cool enough to like be a part of this. Like, I
We
want
love
to
you,
keep this
baby.
going.
We love
know
you.
what I'm saying?
100%, Kaylu.
Kaylu to the moon.
1,000%.
I told you to
As much as
with
any
me,
of the
absolutely.
rest of us.
Hey, I appreciate it. Please, yeah.
One second, because I already knew I was going to do this. I was just waiting on the perfect opportunity to do it. We got this thing in the Beast community called empowerment. Yeah, it's awesome, right? Like we like to empower people. So, but I sit here and I want to empower this person the right way, right? So she's an artist. So I want to make sure we put you in the right place where you can thrive, where you can shine. So I'm going to get the first bee to go off the reservation. I'm going to empower you with a goat.
Oh!
That's awesome.
Right on.
All right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
That's
please,
awesome.
everyone, big round of applause. This is an awesome panel. I appreciate the discussion, and thank you guys.
That's awesome. Ray Petito and the panel.